Seen a lot of ring trucks throughout my day. Set up a lot of rings. Way before I was a champion, I was just another student on ring crew, just setting up every ring I could, trying to learn something from anyone that would teach me. Rocky Romero was one of those people, and I think he saw something in Colby Carino when he was a young, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 18-year-old kid, enough to recommend him to go to New Japan and live in the dojo for a whole year. That was something that I graciously accepted. I was so happy. I was elated. It felt like my dream was come true. I was going to go to Japan just like my dad did, and I was going to make my name. 3 weeks before I went to Japan, I overdosed on heroin, and when the medics came to revive me, I had all my drugs laying around, and I got arrested too. Once New Japan heard about that, well, the contract was done. I wasn't going to Japan no more. Probably not going to Japan for a long while. Rocky Romero put his name on me, and because of what I did, it's solely his name, and it's solely his relationship with New Japan too, and it set him back. And I need to show Rocky that I'm not the same messed up kid that ruined his whole life. I'm this kid that, no, I'm a man that's realized his potential and become a champion in his sport. And I need to show Rocky that, man to man. I need to show him that I'm not the same person that I was 6 years ago. And that who Colby Carino is today is not just some fuck up. It's a champion.
That there are some people in this world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast. Shame on you! Shame on you! My name is Ella Indy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion. And I'm Kimmy Page, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion. And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog, what is it called again? Podcast, period. Or you're ugly. You're Power approved. Alright.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
Are you ready?
Power. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance.
God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party. It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
Wubba, 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 wubba. Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J. Cal. His name is DKM. How are you doing?
I'm not late.
You're not late. No, you got here and look, there was 30 seconds to spare.
Yeah, it was close, though, let me tell you. Remember that time I fell asleep and missed the show altogether?
Did that almost happen?
It almost happened again.
Check this out. I'm sporting the purple NWA shirt. Proudly, I might add, because it was part of the 4 for 20 our man Danny Deals put together at the 75th anniversary show. The other 3 shirts are still in the bag, ready to go for the next meet and greet. I'll be handing those shirts out as well. Let me know how many of you guys are size 2X. We got some free shirts to give away.
I'm a little mad that you didn't buy me my own 4 for 20. I'm good for it.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about it, to be quite honest. I didn't know if you'd want NWA merchandise.
I've bought more NWA merchandise than you have.
That might be true. You bought more Natalia Markova merchandise than I have.
No, I only bought 1 shirt. It's just very, very expensive. And this is how I figured out that her and Mercurio dude were obviously a couple, because she threw his shirt in for like $10.
She's like, there, now you've sold merch. You can sleep in bed.
Yeah, I guess. I'm like, how much is your shirt? And she said an amount that caused my ears to close and everything, and all that, stuff like that. And she goes, I'll throw in one of his for 20, and I go, yeah. She goes, 10, deal. Because 2 shirts at the price was still a little high, but not unreasonable.
Well, the thing about it too, and I don't know if anyone will ever admit to this, right? But like, as someone who brought literally about 12 shirts to give away, because I legitimately brought about 12 shirts to give away, it's so much easier when you pack your suitcase and there isn't that much weight involved. And I imagine that it's so much better to sell that shirt for $10 than it is to throw it back in the suitcase and wait for the next show.
Probably.
Does my camera look weird to you?
Yeah, you look a little fuzzy. And a little dark.
I set the lighting a little bit different, by the way. Look at that.
Oh, that's nice.
It's kind of cool, right?
Yep.
So our boy Dave Scooby got me the Masked Superstar mask. And it's autographed. Thank you, Dave Scooby. But the cool thing that over at IKEA is they have these faces, these mannequin heads that light up. So now I'm doing this lit up mask. I thought it looked kind of cool. Good for Halloween too.
Well,
did I tell you where I'm going to be Saturday?
You told me where you wanted to be Saturday.
I bought my ticket on a whim when I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, so I will be.
Best time to buy things.
One of the great things about living so close to a major Mexican city that has Lucha Libre is that their ticket prices are outstanding. The dollar conversion from pesos to dollars, it's like, I think my 200 pesos was like $15.
That's not bad.
And when you all go on top of that with your Uber drives to the border and back to the border, it's just a couple of bucks.
You travel to the border and back to the border in Uber?
No. I drive to the border. I walk across the border. Then I jump in an Uber that takes me directly to the auditorium. I hem and haw about buying masks and T-shirts. And then
you buy masks and T-shirts.
The last time I did not, and I regretted it. There were so many vendors out front before the show. It's like, I'll catch them on the way out because I wanted to get, there was a long line. And turns out they were all gone by the time I got back out. So, and I'm learning Spanish via Duolingo. So I'm really, ¿Cuánto cuestan la máscara, por favor, señor?
You're getting there.
I think that was pretty accurate, man.
Yeah, for a non-native speaker.
Shit.
Trust me, I'm a non-native speaker. That's pretty good.
I've been I know we have a podcast to talk about, but I haven't mentioned this to you yet. So, I have another channel, Veamos Lucha Libre, where I've been posting content that's specifically Lucha Libre, both Lucha Libre Americano y Lucha Libre Mexicano. And I've been, I think what I want to do now is I think I'm going to try to learn Spanish to do Spanglish interviews with American talent, Lucha Libre talent. For example, like having Mecha Wolf come on and try to do the interview in as much Spanish as I can.
Well, okay. Just make sure they're not in the same room as you.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to use the swear words.
Probably.
Jeremy brings up a good point. The urge to buy stuff at 3 a.m. is how we got QVC.
Yeah. I had an aunt that used to buy stuff off that.
You say that again?
I had an aunt that used to buy stuff off that. And it was literally just, and not only did she, buy whatever, but then she got the deal where you got the second one for free. You just paid shipping. And of course, shipping was more than the actual cost of the item.
To Jeremy's point, do I wear the mask in the evening? That's the Tim Wood deal. I don't, that's on him. Sexio y violencia. That's not me. Luthez says everything at the market can be shortened to a point and a cuanto. It's funny because when I go to these lucha shows, they gave me a nickname. It's really cool. They call me Ben Dejo. I think it's so awesome.
So, Jay, anything happening in the wrestling world?
Jesus, there's so much stuff happening in wrestling. And by the way, I'm not looking for a pat on the back, DK. I'm not looking for any kind of an award or anything. But
What?
I have been posting so much content at www.alliance-wrestling.com. You would think that's my full-time job, DK.
You left a dot out, but
did I? Alliance.com?
He did
No.
www. Alliance Wrestling. There's a dot in between those W's. By the way,
just to show you how exhausted I am. I mean, right now, the most recent post just up an hour ago, Ruthie J, your new number one contender for the NWA Women's World Championship. Spoiler alert. EC3 postpones an appearance for Revenge Pro Wrestling. You've got our pal Tim's, I almost called him Tim Storm, Tim Wood, who is calling for the NWA to bring back the Hall of Fame. We have the match announcement for EC3 versus Tom Latimer. Plus, I've got the schedule put up with, how how many title defenses Colby Carino has this weekend alone? You went to alliance-wrestling.com.
I hear it's a really cool website.
You used to write for that website back in the day.
Didn't say it was as cool as it used to be. I just
Yikes.
I used to write for my own website back in the day.
What happened there?
Well, I said my personal blog hasn't been updated in like 2 years.
I started a personal blog like in 2006.
And nobody blogs anymore anyway, but it's just funny.
I started another blog like in 2016, 2017. I don't know if we've ever discussed this on this podcast. We have in previous incarnations, but back in the day, I used to write for the Examiner, which was purchased by Access. The Examiner was like a niche topic type website where they talked about everything. And so each different city, each different subset, like if you're talking about California, they broke it into Southern California, Northern California, and then Southern California, they broke it down to Los Angeles, OC, Inland Empire, San Diego, all that stuff. And my title was the Anaheim Examiner for Wrestling. And so I would write about the NWA. I would write about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and all the local independents. And it was a paid gig. I was a professional writer for this company. And when they went out of business, they didn't really give a whole lot of notice that they were going out of business. So all those articles I lost. I was really upset because, like, you know, it's even though I wrote it for them, it was still content that I created, and I would have liked to have had it. So a few years ago, I went back on the internet archives and tried to find as much as I could. But I had no real place to put it because it wasn't stuff that would be like recent. So I started putting it on my old blog. But even then, I don't even know what happened to that.
What blog did you? I mean, I remember one blog, probably the more recent one, but nobody blogs anymore.
No, you know what? It's funny. Well, all right, one more story, and then I'll shut up about the past so much. But there was a guy in Southern California who was going to every single wrestling show. And back then, I was the managing editor of SoCal Uncensored. Man, I'm name dropping tonight, baby. And when I was the editor, I was always looking for new content contributors because it was hard to get people to write about wrestling. And this guy says to me, he says, you know, Jay, I don't have any interest in writing. I'd rather just do videos. And I'm thinking, you pompous asshole. You're not going to write about wrestling. You're just going to do videos about wrestling. Turns out he was right. Nobody reads blogs anymore. Nobody writes blogs anymore. Everything is a video chat. Everything's video content. Even this podcast, we opted to go to a video format because more people were willing to watch our ugly mugs than listen to us on a podcast.
And isn't that sad? I would think they'd rather we be hidden.
I've tried to get my wife to come on as a co-host as a treat for everyone, but she's got no interest in that.
Wow. Some people.
So Chris is already jumping the gun, but of course we are going to talk about these recent releases because, I mean, today was another typical day in the world of wrestling, especially when it comes to corporate greed, big mergers, redundancies, and people not getting over or people not willing to re-sign. As it turns out, why is my phone blowing up? Sorry. Gotta make sure that that's not Jaden calling. As it turns out, oh shit. Thanks, Lou. The pod was painful. It turns out that the World Wrestling Entertainment released quite a bit of talent today. And it was talent from all across the board. Main eventers, minor leaguers, NXT talent, some who made it, some who never did make it, some people who were hired only to be released again. And I think it's first of all, it's surprising to me how people don't understand that this is always how it's going to be going forward for the WWE. It's not a mom and pop shop anymore, and even more so now with the merger with with UFC to form TKO. It's always going to be like this. It's a machine. It's a cog. Each and every single wrestler who goes to the WWE goes so knowing that their time there is going to be limited. And we saw a lot of names who were released today. We saw a lot of people who are now no longer under contract. And some of the names, I heard they chose not to resign. Did you hear about that, DK?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I know a couple have wanted out. I mean, really, when I look through the list, there's only one name that semi-surprises me. And, of course, I'm trying to find – oh, here we go. So here's the list. Mustafa Ali, Emma, Rick Boggs. You call him what you want to. I'll call him what I want to. Besides, I said Boogs a lot of time on the show. Alea. Hello. Elias. Reddick Moss. Top Data. Somebody who probably ought to be glad they let go after the way they were treating him on TV. Poor schmuck. Shelton Benjamin.
Wow.
Dolph Ziggler. Quincy Elliott, who I'll admit I don't know who that is.
A lot of the names I don't recognize.
I don't recognize some of the TNA ones. Quincy Elliott, I said.
You mean NXT names?
Yes, what I say.
You said TNA names. I'm like, well,
Yeah,
you should recognize it.
No, I don't recognize some of the NXT names. Sorry. I blame brain fog. Bryson Montana, who I think I've seen before. Dana Brooke, who, of course, used to be on the main roster and got moved down.
Yeah.
Hello?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Oh, I'm hearing. Hold on just a second.
Uh-oh.
I had an ad pop up, and I don't know why.
Nothing changed on our end.
Exactly. Mansoor, Mace, Dabakato, Shanky, who I quite honestly totally had forgotten about.
I don't even know who that is.
He was one of the Indian wrestlers that was with like Jinder Mahal and Veer and everything. And he actually kind of like turned fan favorite and then just appeared completely. Yulisa Leon? I don't know. I don't know that name and I don't know that person. Daniel MacArthur, don't know. Kevin Ventura Cortez, don't know. Alexis Gray, don't know. So the only person on this list that's a semi-surprise to me was Dolph Ziggler, because you just always figured he was probably a lifer.
The thing about Dolph, and I don't know if you heard this, and I don't know if it's true or not, because I don't have a way of looking up contracts from gainfully employed WWE employees, but I heard that he allowed his contract to expire, that his release wasn't as much as a release as it was a contract expiration.
I suppose it's possible. It doesn't seem to line up with when he was supposed to. But, anything's possible. They haven't used him. They kind of given his role to The Miz.
Yeah, I see that.
And so, I don't know. Would that be the right way on it? I just don't know. He's not a young man, but he's not that old either.
It's about Zig?
Yeah, 43.
He still has gas in the tank.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would think, here's a question for you. Ziggler basically was acknowledged when he signed his last WWE deal, was like, he didn't care how he used them. They paid well. So does someone like that, if AEW's interested, do you go to AEW because they pay well? Because you're probably his brother's there, but he's probably not going to be used any better. At least not for any length of time. I mean, honestly, most WWE talent hasn't been used any better. Tony Storm can probably make the argument, but
Soraya's running around with the title. John.
Well, she is, but she had been champion multiple times. What I'm looking at is where Moxley probably slightly better in that he's been in the world title contention that he probably wouldn't have. He's won world titles where he probably maybe wouldn't have won any more in WWE. Although now they've split the brands and split the titles again, maybe they would have. I don't know. And yeah, it's hard to say. It really is. But you look at Ruby Soho. She's been used almost exactly the same as she was in WWE. Miro, same.
Maybe worse. At least Miro was on TV normally.
Yeah, and so I mean, I don't. A lot of people kept going, "Oh, it'll be so great because these WWE stars will go to AEW where they'll be, used right," and it's just like, not so much. And of course, like I said, Toni Storm's probably been used better, but she's in the women's division, and their women's division sucks. So I don't really know. Jaden, I see you pop up down there.
Yes.
What? I assume you've seen the names of the people released.
Yes.
Would any of them be like an interest to Dr. Zirconium if a deal could be worked out? Would there be any that he would think, hey, with the right deal, they could probably do me some good?
I know for a fact he was trying to get Shelton Benjamin, and it just the cost and the logistics couldn't work out. Dolph Ziggler will draw anywhere if somebody knew how to use him right, which is always the caveat. Danielle Taylor, was that it? No, what was her name? Emma's name.
Emma, Tennille Dashwood.
Tennille Dashwood, yeah. She could be useful in a woman's division or something like that, I think. However, if the WWGP Women's Championship ever gets defended again, if there's a new champion crowned, she would be an interesting person for that. She's probably one of the more talented wrestlers that just had a series of really bad gimmicks.
There's some truth to that.
So, other than that, not really.
Wait, real quick. Jaden, you don't think that Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators would benefit from like a Mustafa Ali?
No, because he lives across the other side of the country, so that would be very least likely.
Okay, that's fair. But I was thinking like from a standpoint of if he was available to Dog, do you think that thank you, he would be beneficial to the roster? I get what you're saying. If travel wasn't an issue, is he somebody that
like if he was already in the Northeast?
If he was close to the Northeast and he was within a good price, I see Mustafa Ali also being useful. I was going based on the knowledge of their locations.
Mustafa Ali to me seems like the guy that's going to get it. And by it, I mean all of the bookings. I think Ali's going to end up in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. He's probably going to end up doing some stuff with AEW, maybe doing some stuff with, or, not AEW, but doing it with Ring of Honor. I could see him doing those prestige shows. I could see him doing Game Changer Wrestling. I can see that guy ending up just about anywhere. And like he should. The dude worked very hard for it, and he's been wanting that release for such a long time. So he's one of those guys that I think is going to be totally okay. He'll probably be better off outside of that WWE bubble. The surprising name to me, again, and I think I'm echoing what you both already said, was Ziggler. I know from what I understand, from what I read, and again, this might not be accurate information, but from what I'm understanding is his contract, he did not want to re-sign with the WWE. So either he's doing one of two things or three things or four things. Maybe he's opting out to go to AEW where, I could imagine a match with him and say Kenny Omega or Bryan Danielson or even, I think he just got hurt last night, but Jon Moxley might be a very interesting, very fun match to have. He might be going to just do the independents, and that he could probably, we're seeing Matt Cardona kind of reinventing the idea of being on the independents as somebody who that guy is taking that whole do-it-yourself culture to the next level. And he's, I'm only basing it off of what he says, but he's never made more money working in wrestling than he has in this last stretch on the indies. Or maybe he's deciding to go into Hollywood. I mean, Dolph Ziggler has already been in a few movies, so maybe that's something maybe this isn't the best time to be doing that, but maybe that's the goal.
Another one I think based on location, I don't know where he is from, is Elias.
Yeah.
I think the Rowan crowd would like him a lot if he was on the Rowan event. And he's got talent. I've seen it. It's just he's another one of those guys. And honestly, it'd be really funny if he gets brought into the NWA and he's managed by
Stevens.
Aaron Stevens. Kept wanting to call him his WWE name, and I didn't want to say it, but
I'm missing the boat, I guess, when it comes to Elias. I saw him live once, maybe twice. I never really thought that highly of him, and I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I just didn't see the appeal, and I understood he got those pops when come walk with Elias and all that stuff, but I just never saw the appeal. DK, do you feel differently? Are you an Elias guy?
I don't know that I would say I was an Elias guy. I saw flashes of talent in WWE and AEW. You can develop what's kind of called a charisma pop or a catchphrase pop or whatever, where you can get the crowd to go along with your walk with Elias or Adam Cole, baby, or whatever, but they may or may not care about you once you're actually wrestling in the ring. And so there are three between the Rick Boogs, Boggs, Bayman, Elias, and Reddick Moss that I don't know enough about if they have real talent that could serve them well, like on the indies, or if they'll be lucky to just be somewhere and live off their WWE fame by making appearances here and there. I really don't know. Moss and Biggs, they both have like the type of size and strength or whatever that like the NWA type of wrestler. But again, sometimes you just don't know until you see them elsewhere. It was like a lot of people go, how could WWE blow it with the Parker
Boudreaux?
Oh man, he's going to be the next Brock Lesnar. He's, just like Lesnar. He has the same background and blah this and blah that. And, WWE misuse him, casting him as some psychopath or whatever. And then he goes to AEW. And then you watch some of his matches on AEW. And you go, I think I see why WWE released him. And because he was one of those that they said just wasn't getting it. And you can kind of tell he didn't move well. He's clanky. He seemed off balance a lot of times. It's just he did better as the destroy him monster psychopath than he did as a wrestler. And there are some others we've talked about who are currently in Impact. I kind of see why they were where they were in the world. Ziggler, again, we talked about 43. If he can get a decent contract out of AEW, I would go. I think if Ali goes to AEW, he'll be used like he was in WWE. I think there's just too much that AEW is overly bloated still. And even with 5 hours of wrestling on TV, They still don't know how to book their women. They don't really know how to book at all. And so I don't really know that he would be used correctly.
I just think it's funny. DK said that the Boogs and the other guy, they're they're NWA wrestlers. It's funny how somebody in the 1980s would have been WWF wrestlers are now considered NWA wrestlers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you see why the WWE picked them up. I mean, they're big, strong guys. But I don't know enough about their skill in the ring because of the style of wrestling that or sports entertainment that WWE puts on the ring. And in some ways, it doesn't do you any favors if you're with what WWE does with you. You can't duplicate any part of that elsewhere. So you have to be able to adapt to whatever the circumstances. And I don't know the talent levels of those guys. I'm not criticizing them because I don't know. You could put them in some independent promotions, an MLW or something like that, where, maybe, they get in the ring with somebody like Hammerstone or Jacob Fatu or what's their champion's name? Alex Kane.
Mumbai, Alex Kane.
That maybe. Oh, JJ. Maybe we can see more out of them. It's just so hard to judge anybody by their WWE career because it's really, really difficult to know how good they are or aren't. And I think, the only place they're going to draw anything is going to be small independents, but.
Well, some people might make it in Japan. They go there and resurge. They might go. Impact might find a way they want to change their gimmick around and do it. I think if there's any one wrestler, at least male wrestler, that NWA should be trying to pick up, it should be Shelton Benjamin.
Yes.
He's been off television enough that it's actually an advantage for him. He wasn't he wasn't squashed down every week and losing all the time on TV. So the NWA, if there's ever anybody, Billy just had a big wedding a couple of days ago. And maybe after his honeymoon, in 90 days, he could start messaging Shelton Benjamin because Shelton can go. And he's got the raw talent. And again, it's just he's somebody that someone needs to put him in the right direction.
Yeah, he's older, so I would take advantage of him while there's an opportunity.
He's perfect NWA age.
Well, he's young for NWA, but
Well, look, and can I be honest here for a second?
No, lie to me.
Lie to you. Everything's great in the world of the professional wrestling. The National Wrestling Alliance is the greatest product that's out there. Billy Corgan could do no wrong. Someone's going to clip that and send it to him, and he's going to be like, yes, they finally get it. When it comes to the booking of the NWA office, I'm a little concerned about how Shelton Benjamin would be used, and I'm terrified that they would put him in the similar role that they did with the Pope. Remember, Pope got over organically, right? His first appearance in the NWA was that of a manager seeking out his full horseman, if you remember correctly. He never got there because during the transition, during the pandemic, during a time when they just really couldn't run, they used the Pope to put take the TV title off of Zicky Dice in a United Wrestling Network ring on Primetime Live. And then when the Pope debuted in the NWA as a wrestler and not a manager, that guy got over. And people organically wanted to see the Pope versus the Nick Aldis. And it never materialized. They never gave him that opportunity to wrestle Nick Aldis. The matchup that I wanted, I think you guys wanted as well. Could be wrong. And so I'm not saying that Shelton Benjamin is the Pope. It's a completely different skill set, almost down to the T. But I'm afraid that when you have somebody like a Shelton Benjamin who had made his name elsewhere, and really, let's be honest, Shelton Benjamin can out wrestle anybody in the NWA, period. Everybody is less than Shelton Benjamin. The dude is a superior athlete. I just don't see them giving him the same opportunities that like we would all want him to have. Now, maybe that's okay. Maybe he comes in and they put him into a storyline feud with whoever becomes the TV champion after this set of tapings, or maybe they put him into a feud with the national champion, Silas Mason, the Thrillbilly. I wouldn't hate any one of those things, but eventually I'm going to want to see Shelton Benjamin and the elite of the NWA in challenging for that 10 pounds of gold. And I'm so concerned that we wouldn't get there.
Yeah, I mean, really kind of have that concern with anybody. They certainly have a mixed record in giving fans the matches you would think would be a decent draw, a good draw. Again, Aldous versus Eli Drake, which a lot of people were saying, oh, well, that was planned for the future. I know that was planned for the future and stuff like that. Well, look what happens when you plan for the future. If you do, take it, it was something that could have been hot at that moment. And, all the stories at the time, I don't know if it was true or not, and I certainly would hope not. But, all the stories were he was supposed to drop the title to Marty Scurll. They were certainly setting it up that he would drop the title to Marty Scurll. And so, I'm sorry, but I don't think Marty was ever quite as over as some people thought he was. As a singles heavyweight wrestler.
I believe that they 100% were positioned to put the belt on Marty, but I don't believe it was going to be a long-term reign. I don't even know if it was going to go back to Aldous. I think it might have been a transitional championship. No one directly told me, hey, he's going to be transitional champion, but it was confirmed to me that the plan was to put the belt on him, but it was going to be a short-term run. So,
and I certainly heard that from a number of people. I mean, a number of people, were saying that was going to be the case. And maybe yes, maybe no. I can't answer, with 100% certainty. But why would you have done that? And would you have wanted Marty Scurll versus Eli Drake to put
the reason they're going to do that is from probably, I'm only guesstimating off of things I've heard, but he was friends with Aldous, so it's probably a friend trying to help a friend out. Plus, he had power in Ring of Honor at the time, so that's what it was. It was probably a political move to get some NWA association with Ring of Honor.
Could you imagine the 10 pounds of gold being defended on Power and on Sinclair Broadcasting and having world title matches, even in a short term, even in a short run on Ring of Honor TV? It certainly would have brought more eyeballs to the product.
Well, they had Aldous out there.
Right. But you missed the part where Jaden said it was a political move, because
I understand 100% it was a political move. I'm saying it wouldn't have made a damn bit of difference. The NWA title was already on ROH.
It was before Power. You got to remember, if you go back in the Wayback Machine, back to 2019, before Power debuted, they were slowly getting the association with the NWA off of the books. And that part of it might have been because of Aldous making a stink about Madison Square Garden. It was supposed to be Cody versus Aldous at Madison Square Garden. Then Aldous didn't even get booked to be a part of that MSG show. He ended up doing color commentary for the program, not even involved with any storyline matches. They ended up having Colt Cabana and James Storm wrestling the national title in dark matches instead of on TV. Hell, they took the tag titles off of them Villains Incorporated in a dark match because they didn't want to have the NWA featured anymore, and the NWA needed to have their champions. You know, they could have had Villains. They brought Villains in later, but they only brought in Brody King again and Flip Gordon again after Marty Scurll was in leadership for Ring of Honor.
Yeah, when you have booking power.
Yep, and then things changed.
But everything at the time, their first go around, everything at the time was ROH fans never got into the NWA. They didn't like the NWA there. They didn't like the NWA titles. Scurll, if he had held it and he was booking, but he was ROH was never going to put over the NWA, even if Scurll's champion. Even if Scurll's champion.
No, but you're missing the point. It wasn't up to Ring of Honor to put them over. It was up to Ring of Honor to give them exposure. That's what they wanted. They wanted to be on Ring of Honor TV.
But they had been on Ring of Honor TV once before.
They weren't then, though. They weren't continuously on there.
And they hadn't been that long since they were on there. And nobody really gave a shit that they were on there.
Let me point something else out to you, right? You know this. I know this. Jaden knows this. I'm sure most of our viewers know this. When Jim Cornette was the voice of the NWA with Joe Galli, when he was part of the color commentary group, you had views up in the hundreds of thousands for those early episodes of Power. Mm-hmm. They didn't happen overnight. It grew. It was gradual. And there was a significant drop when Jim Cornette was...
Actually, the reverse. They started high and then kind of dropped as it was no longer a novelty.
Well, the minute that Jim Cornette got released of his duties, fired, quit, whatever, the ratings, the views dropped significantly. And of course, around this time is when Marty Scurll came into Power. And maybe I'm misreading the tea leaves, but what I think they were trying to do is put the title on Scurll so that Scurll could go to Ring of Honor with the belt and hopefully find some renewed interest in what the NWA was doing, because they had immediate success under what they were doing. I think they were like, hey guys, check us out what we're doing now. Because you got to remember, when Aldis was on programming, when Aldis was in Ring of Honor, there wasn't a Power yet. The Power didn't exist.
No, there wasn't. But I'm just saying, overall, I don't think. And some of this has to go back to fan base and fan reaction. And this is what I've always said. Okay, Marty Scurll was not top guy really in ROH. I mean, he had the one big match for the title.
Right.
They were never going to put the ROH title on Marty Scurll. That's part of the reason he probably became the booker. And everything. The ROH fans never gave a shit about the NWA. Never, ever, ever. Putting Marty Scurll, a person who was never going to hold their title, he was never going to main event an ROH show. He would have had the belt out there. Well, they already had people with the belt out there. If they were interested, they came. If they left because of Cornette, left, that tells you that the NWA on its own didn't do shit to draw people. And then also, as soon as they would have split up and put the title back on NWA people, and the relationship probably would have ended not too long afterwards with ROH.
Go back to 2019.
No.
Or go back to, was it 2018? When was the Crockett Cup that they did with Ring of Honor? Was that 2018 or 2019?
I will lie to you if I tell you.
Okay, well, regardless, we had a Crockett Cup, an NWA gimmick, an NWA tournament that I was at in Concord, North Carolina, with a packed house because they wanted to see the Crockett Cup. They wanted to see Marty Scurll versus Nick Aldis. They wanted to see the Briscoes take on the Rock and Roll Express. And there was a huge amount of people there. They weren't all NWA fans. I guarantee it. You had talents
Where
from
did it take place?
North Carolina.
Concord, North Carolina.
So, and what was Concord, North Carolina next to? I mean, what was the metro area?
You're talking about a brand that hasn't been relevant for a very long time in that area.
Do you think, based off of what you're trying to say, DK, do you think the NWA would have drawn without the NWA, without the Ring of Honor presence, that same or very close to that same amount of crowd?
Depends.
And I got something to say once you guys finish, because I have something else to add to that.
Some of it, of course, would depend on what teams were in.
Okay, you
wouldn't have had the Briscoes. You wouldn't have had the Villains Inc. or you wouldn't have had any of the Ring of Honor guys. There was no NWA presence.
You probably would have had.
I mean, again, this is fun speculation. Who would they have had? Okay, they wouldn't have had the Briscoes.
They wouldn't have had the talent from CMLL because they didn't have that relationship. They wouldn't have the New Japan talent because they didn't have that relationship. So you're talking about War Kings. You're talking about they had just made at that tournament. They made Latimer and Isaacs a tag team. They were the wild card, right?
Okay,
you would have had the Rock and Roll Express.
Okay, I got the thing pulled up here. So we had Bandito and Flip Gordon.
They would have been there.
Versus two guys from CMLL.
They would have been there.
Okay. They would have been there. Would it have mattered?
Yes.
Bandito and Flip Gordon. If
Bandito might have mattered a little bit. The rest, I doubt.
I think you're missing the point.
Bandito wouldn't. No, I mean,
but DKM.
We're talking about
the NWA was a draw. There was no draw there. You're talking about
that's what I'm saying. So Bandito and Flip Gordon,
okay,
and the Mexican tag team, they wouldn't have been there. Nobody would have gave a shit.
The Bandito would have drawn because that's what the Ring of Honor crowd. He's one wrestler. The NWA, I mean the Ring of Honor crowd would have came. So yes, Bandito would have mattered.
So Royce, I don't.
You might not like him. He doesn't care. But the Ring of Honor fans who came to the event.
I don't know that he drew a ton of Ring of Honor fans on his own. If you took everybody else that was from Ring of Honor off, look at each one of these teams separately and assume Ring of Honor's not there. Bandito by himself would have drawn shit.
To the NWA, no. To the Ring of Honor, yes.
Okay, but that's what I'm talking about.
He wouldn't have been there if he wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the Ring of Honor. So you're adding apples and oranges.
Okay, but even if what if he hadn't have been there and other Ring of Honor people had been there? Would it have mattered? No.
But see, you're making my point for me. If Ring of Honor would have been there, and then they wouldn't have had the draw that they had.
Okay, who do you think draw more? Okay, Rock and Roll Express. Who do you think drew more fans? Rock and Roll Express or Bandito and Flip?
The Briscoe brothers.
1,000%. Do each one as I go through.
You can't do that.
No, you can't. Because here's the thing. You guys are saying Ring of Honor. Make the difference.
I'm saying
you bring the Briscoe brothers in. You bring the Briscoe.
You are not bringing the Briscoe brothers in at that time without Ring of Honor. Without Ring of Honor, there are no Briscoe brothers. That's what we're trying to say.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is lacking them doesn't saying it's Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, the only thing Ring of Honor brought to this thing
was the names that they were able to draw with. Yes.
Was that
minus
that villain, other than the fact that Villain Enterprises won, the only people that Ring of Honor brought that mattered in any way, shape, or form was the Briscoe brothers. If the only team that Ring of Honor would have said, hey, yeah, sure, we'll send you a team. We'll send you the Briscoe brothers. That's the only one that made a difference. Nobody gave a shit about Bandito and Flip Gordon.
Are you telling me that nobody gave a shit about the talent from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Satoshi
No.
Kojima?
No one gave a shit about him.
I give a shit about him.
Not in. If you're talking about the greater, if you're talking about the greater population of local people who are buying tickets.
So that then what you were saying, what I'm interpreting you saying, is that crowd was only there for Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson.
No, I mean, I think they were there for the Briscoe brothers too, not just whatever. What I'm saying is the Briscoe brothers were the only Ring of Honor people that made a damn difference. And if they had come through any other means or by themselves, I don't think it would have made a big difference. What was the name of the town again?
Concord.
So in Concord, Carolina, whichever one it was, north, south, I don't care. Yes, I think Ricky and Robert probably drew as many people or more people than almost every team that was on the thing.
Not named the Briscoes.
Not named the Briscoes. And remember, the Briscoes are basically came from that area too. If the Briscoes had been West Coast people, I don't think it would have mattered. But
the Briscoes came from Delaware. Calling North Carolina and Delaware the same area is kind of like saying Dallas and Houston are the same area, DK.
Well, but they were, they had wrestled in the States. They wrestled for... Yeah,
they wrestled for Ring of Honor in North Carolina that has wrestled in Concord before and drew a crowd in the area before. Without the Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, they drew a crowd in Concord without the Rock and Roll Express, without the NWA. Concord was one of their regular towns. It's also where they had pretty high television ratings, which is one thing I was going to go into.
They also had wrestled for other promotions in the area before they made it into ROH.
I know the Briscoe brothers. I've been around the Briscoe brothers. They wrestled a lot in the Northeast. They weren't really used in the...
They wrestled up and down the East Coast.
Not until they were Ring of Honor super people. Like, not until they were regular Ring of Honor people. Nobody in Joe Price or the...
This question. Let's say they had left Ring of Honor 6 months before. Would they have still drawn?
Yes. Let's say they never went to Ring of Honor and nobody gave a crap and nobody paid any attention to them and there was no public. Would they have still drawn?
Can I say something now?
Well, answer your question, of course not, because you put up a scenario where nobody knows.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is, but saying they got famous because of Ring of Honor.
Who the hell they get famous from? Church's Fried Chicken?
Would you shut up for a second and let me talk?
You've been doing nothing but talking. You talk all the time.
For a second and let me talk.
Can I find a way to not let you talk? That'd be better.
That they got famous from ROH, I don't deny. That they became the Briscoe brothers who everyone knew and loved because of ROH, I don't deny one fucking bit.
Okay.
What I am saying is, if they had been with ROH, got famous, and left the promotion 6 months to a year beforehand, by that time they were so hot, they would have drawn whether they were part of ROH or not. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying ROH isn't responsible for them being famous. I'm saying at that point in their career, if they had not been with ROH, they still would have drawn.
That's like saying...
If you deny that, you're an idiot.
That's like saying that
no, because our argument is, does it matter that ROH was a part of it?
Yes, they had the ring. No, they brought the equipment. They brought the television. They brought the pay-per-view stuff.
My only thing, well, he found other pay-per-view people and other things to team with. Billy was good at finding people to work with. So the argument that it had to be ROH is just ridiculous.
Okay, I'm going to step in now. I've been quiet for a little bit. We're not saying that it was...
I don't know. I didn't know you weren't talking.
It was not ROH that drew the house. It was a collective. It was every piece. But if you tell me that Ring of Honor did not have a part in the fact that they drew the house that they did, knowing full well that the Cabarrus Arena in Concord, North Carolina, Just with Jay Briscoe, I didn't do any more research, but just with Jay Briscoe, they had Ring of Honor did 4 events there before the Crockett Cup, and 1 event after there with Jay Briscoe. Now, that's just with Jay Briscoe. That's just with Ring of Honor in that arena. You could tell me
what those events draw.
I don't have gate numbers. What I'm saying is that they were already established in that area.
Well,
now, yes,
okay, they're established in that area, but it makes a difference.
Can I talk now, please?
No, that makes a difference if they're drawing 200 or if they're drawing 900.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. They
Yeah,
had
it
a
does.
presence there.
Because we're looking at the total people that.
Can the person who actually runs a wrestling company say something on this one real quick, DK?
No.
They wouldn't be running the damn building if they didn't draw. That's an expensive ass building if they didn't draw enough to actually be back. Second of all, I was trying to say, I don't know, but they wouldn't have been back if it wasn't. Second, I'm trying to say the reason that Ring of Honor runs certain locations is because they get very high viewership. It's always been that way. Where they run is based off of the viewership, based off of where they're the Sinclair television. They've gone to places they drew
here in DFW and they didn't draw shit here.
Did they get good ratings in DFW? And have they been back here?
Very high.
Well, I don't know why they didn't draw.
That was on the TV station that worked at the TV station. That they were one of their favorite things because they really drew. They came here and they 204 people paid.
Well, then
you people aren't the only ones that know people. You're not the only ones that know what's happening in the wrestling world. Sorry.
No, but I am the only one who's actually run a show here. And I know.
Not true either, but that's another story. But anyway, my thing.
How many shows have you run, DK?
3. And
no, I don't mean working with somebody else. I mean,
I ran 3 on my own. I never told you guys about them because they drew shit. But anyway.
Well, that's a good reason not to run.
Yeah, I mean,
you stopped running because they didn't draw. Well, they stopped going to Dallas because they didn't draw, but they kept running in Concord, North Carolina, because they drew.
Well, no, they've been in Dallas multiple times. They never drew, but they came several times.
Hey, do you guys know Ring of Honor never ran a show in Los Angeles that wasn't connected to WrestleMania weekend? Interesting, huh?
It would make sense. All right. I know everyone's going to think I'm leaving because I'm mad, but I'm actually leaving because of my meds.
All right. Good. We'll get your meds. Have a cup of water. We'll see you in a few minutes. You muted yourself. All right. I just want to say this real quick, and then I'm going to let Jaden say what he needs to say too. I don't think the argument I was ever trying to make was that it was only Ring of Honor that drew that event. I am quite aware how popular Ricky and Robert are, but I'm saying that in terms of star power, who else was there? Again, War Kings had a run in Impact, but that wasn't wasn't so monumental, you know. The other tag teams that were there, I mean, Jay Bradley and Josephus as a tag team, yeah, I don't think that they were drawing numbers. You might not like the CMLL guys, you might not care about Lucha Libre, but those guys were a draw for some people. New Japan sent Satoshi Kojima. And I can't remember the other gentleman's name off the top of my head right at this moment. But neither one of them were I could pull it up right here.
You're trying to say neither of them.
I'm saying that the reason why the NWA was successful in that show is because they had a Ring of Honor help bring in some talent and bring in some names. Yuji Nagata, that's who I was going to say, Yuji Nagata. I don't think that that NWA card sold on the basis of Allison Kay and Santana Garrett, or specifically Colt Cabana and Willie Mack, or Nick Aldis and Marty Scurll. I think there was a lot of elements that made that night special. And I think the reason why you work with Ring of Honor is because you know that was what was going to happen. Now, I'm going to shut up. Jaden, you go right ahead.
Oh, I'm going to wait for DK to come back because I don't want him to hear it.
Fuck. Okay, well then I'll filler bust here for a little bit. Yeah, it was the reason why they brought in Marty Scurll in was for the simple fact that he was going to help bring eyeballs to the product. And again, I hear what DK was saying. I'm not disacknowledging that. DKM is right. Ring of Honor fans have never been diehard NWA fans. It's not the same market. I will say this, that when Adam Pearce and Brent Albright wrestled in New York City for the 10 pounds of gold, that they had a huge standing ovation in the back. People were going nuts in the stands. I think that was Glory by Honor. I don't have it looked up right now, but it was one of Kerry Silkin's favorite matches that they ever did, and it was for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. There was, you can't say that they're the same audience, because they're not. The Ring of Honor audience is not the NWA audience, but there is some crossover. It's just like the MLW audience isn't necessarily the NWA audience. There's some crossover. And if you have an event where you're featuring people who are on television, who are at that point, you don't have to like Marty Scurll, but he was a big star for Ring of Honor at that moment. DK said that they would never have put the title on Marty Scurll. I don't know that I would believe that. They put the title on Dalton Castle, for crying out loud. I don't think that it would be a far-fetched that they put the belt on Marty Scurll. And like you and I agreed, Jane, there's a lot of politicking involved there. The NWA had some viewership going down. They brought in Brody King, they brought in PCO, they brought in Flip Gordon, and they brought in Marty Scurll. I think that was to help pump those numbers up. It's kind of funny how I don't even remember exactly what we were talking about. We were talking about WWE talent who were free agents, and then we were going to get to talking about Power and the championship matches that are set up for Samhain, and somehow we got on this Ring of Honor tangent. And I'm trying to stall here for DKM to get back, but I don't know how soon he's going to be back. So, Jaden, tell me, tell me something, anything.
One of the things I wanted to say is Ring of Honor, and then DK almost kind of proved my point, had really high TV ratings in certain locations. Not all, but some of their Sinclair locations actually drew very well, and that's where they tried to run. But the amount of people who showed up at the NWA or Ring of Honor in North Carolina is a small fraction compared to what they were actually drawing on TV.
Yeah.
So there might have been a lot of Ring of Honor people that came to the pay-per-view or the Ring of Honor events in the area, but there might have been a lot of people who just watched Ring of Honor because it was wrestling, but may have not gone to Ring of Honor because they didn't deal with the people. I've been to a couple Ring of Honor events or shows, and I didn't like the crowd. They were too douchey. So I didn't like being around them. So that's why I stopped going to Ring of Honor stuff. I still watch some Ring of Honor stuff. I don't think I ever bought a pay-per-view, but I've watched stuff on, I found a website because the TV station that played Ring of Honor in my town, and I didn't get. So the Sinclair station, because it was like an upper thing. You had to actually pay to get the channel with a bunch of other ones to increase your cable package. But I found a website that played it, and I watched it, but I didn't go to because I didn't like being around the Ring of Honor people. Again, they were just a little too douchebaggy.
We're still waiting for DK to come back, and he's not here yet. So I don't know.
Those people that they drew, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm not trying to be DK here for a second. But those people that they drew on those television stations that actually watched it, they might have come to see an NWA event, even if it was partially with Ring of Honor. They may not have come to see the Ring of Honor, but the NWA they might have. So yes, the Ring of Honor helped draw that crowd because people might not even known about it.
The way that I think about it is this, because again, I was there, right? I was there. I was sitting next to our. I was sitting next to, and I'm blanking on my friend's name right now, which is awful. He used to be on our message boards. You've talked to him before.
NWA Champions. Sorry.
Neither one of us would want to sit next to each other. Hold on a second.
Bless you.
Thank you. God, why can't I think of his name? Anyways, doesn't matter. I was sitting next to him. While I was there, I saw a bunch of my friends that I met at the 70th anniversary show there. And I'm going to sneeze again.
Bless you.
think I'm allergic to all the arguments. But the point of what I'm trying to say is there's a huge NWA contingent there. Absolutely. And there were people there to see Nick Aldis. There were people there to see Willie Mack and Colt Cabana and the Rock and Roll Express. I don't want it. I'm not trying to say that those guys weren't draws to an NWA audience. I'm not saying that Santana Garrett versus Allison Kay wasn't a draw for some NWA fans. I think what the biggest draw for NWA fans was the fact that the Crockett Cup was being revived under an NWA banner. And I think, Nick Aldis versus Marty Scurll was a draw. But I also think, the Briscoe brothers were very much an important draw of that show. I think the Rock and Roll Express, again, I'm not the biggest Ricky Morton fan. You guys all know that. I'm not making anything up here. But that was a draw for many people to be there. The people next to me were going nuts for them. It almost blew my mind how popular they were in that audience in 2019 or 2018, whatever year it was.
2019, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I have it up now. Let's see. That was 2019, April 27, 2019. And, the attendance is listed at 1,300. The NWA hasn't had a show with 1,300 people since. I would say that maybe their 70th anniversary show had probably close to that number, maybe even more. But that was also headlined with Cody and Nick Aldis. Of course, it drew well. I don't know if DK's coming back.
Okay, I actually did find the attendance. They go between, not counting the 1,300 for the NWA, which was the biggest, they went between 1,100 to 500. 500 being the one after the Ring of Honor. After the NWA.
Yeah. And then Dave Scooby said several Sinclair stations in the Carolinas, a Ring of Honor wrestling was repped in the area. So, again. But going back to the WWE talent, because I don't know how quickly DK is going to be back. Just going back to the WWE talent real quick. Jaden, you had mentioned there was a few names that Dr. Lawrence Erconian would be very interested in using. But let's look at it specifically at an NWA standpoint. Was there any name, any talent that you saw on that list and you thought, yeah, that's a surefire bet for the NWA? If they can get them, they should.
Well, I already said about 100% Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin would be something. I don't think they could use Mustafa Ali, right?
No.
I think if they use him correctly, Dana Brooke and Emma could work.
As a tag team or as individuals?
Yes. Either or.
Okay.
Dana Brooke less as an individual, even though she got a lot better. But Dana Brooke and Emma as a tag team, I think, would be very good as a challenger for Pretty Empowered. And I think Emma versus crap, I can't think of the girl's name. The women's champion.
Kenzie Page.
Kenzie Page. I keep wanting to say Ella Envy, but I know that's your girl.
My girl. My girl.
My girl. Anyway, I think that would be a good match and something that Kenzie can learn from. Emma Tennille, whatever she goes by, was always one of those wrestlers who was hampered by a bad gimmick. Not always, but WWE wise, yes.
Yeah.
So I think with a right gimmick and the right person in charge, I think Emma and Dana Brooke could be useful. I think Elias working with Stevens would be fun.
Yeah.
I think that could work if somebody, if it could go really wrong and really stupidly goofy, but I think it could work.
What about Dolph Ziggler? To me, he seems like the surefire of all the releases. He seems like the guy that's going to land on his feet the easiest. Am I wrong on that?
He's also the one I see least coming to the NWA out of almost everybody else on that roster.
Yeah. I think
so. That's why I'm not even going to bother speculating. I could say The Rock's coming to the NWA. Hell, what if instead of the Briscoes just not parting from Ring of Honor, what if The Rock, who has already parted from the WWE, showed up in the NWA?
Yeah.
What if I had wings and could shit out gold? Be a lot of good things happening then. Yeah, I'd make sure I'd shit on it and fly above DK's head when he keeps acting like that. But seriously, like saying by putting out that scenario, yes, they would help. They would draw, but I don't think they would have done the same thing without Ring of Honor. 1,000,000,000%.
Quincy
Hell,
Elliott. Sorry, go ahead.
I was say hell, they did 1,100 without any NWA talent.
Yeah. Quincy Elliott was a guy who actually started out here. A lot of people might not remember him because he wrestled under a mask as the name of Congo Crush. That one, I honestly, I was surprised he even was signed by the WWE, and I don't mean to sound like a dick, but like he was definitely a different look than what I thought the WWE was looking for. Never made it past NXT. It had most of his matches were on the Level Up show. But he's a guy, because of his size, like, you know, he is somebody who is built like a Tyrus in terms of a rather big guy, but also, you know, not as physically intimidating as Tyrus, but maybe could be, you know, especially now that, you know, he's getting a little bit older, he's getting a little bit more into his prime. Maybe we might see something like a Quincy Elliott, a big dude showing up on the roster. What do you think about that?
What did he wrestle in WWE? Quincy Elliott, you said?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was Congo Crush until you just said that.
Yeah.
I actually liked Congo Crush. I could have worked with him. He almost worked for Dog. I don't remember what happened, but there was some interest in it, and I forget how that didn't work out.
Congo Crush was on your radar? I thought he was really a SoCal guy. I didn't even think he got out of the area.
If it's the same guy I'm thinking of, he worked for a while somewhere in the southern area. He was like living there because I know he did Impact, and he was doing something in the lower states, if I remember correctly.
I think we're talking about two different people, because Congo Crush didn't get out of SoCal until he showed up in NXT. And I might even have a picture of the guy if I can look it up fast enough.
Like a missing link green look face, right?
No, Congo Crush wore like a bright orange mask.
Okay, then no, I'm thinking of somebody else. Congo Kong, maybe?
Maybe. Well, then there we go for that. Then that changes that, because I'm like, no, I don't think it's the same guy, because
maybe not. I'm thinking of it's a guy. There was an African American guy with green face paint. Anybody can remember? He was heavier. He had wild hair, kind of like missing link looking gimmick, kind of.
It's not a great picture, but I do in fact have a photo that I'm getting ready to bring up here right now.
Hope DK's blood pressure isn't too high.
That's maybe why he's not back on the program yet.
You know, when Cherry hit that like 80 something like he is, it does happen. Oh yeah, that's not who I thought it was.
Yeah, I see him. He's coming back, guys. All right, we're gonna let you say what you want to say to him, and then we want to wrap this up so we can get to the other things. But as soon as DK gives me the thumbs up in the green screen in the green room, I'll bring him back on. By the way, this just handed to me. The NWA will be returning for its TV tapings on November the 4th, following its pay-per-view on October the 28th. These tapings will take place at the Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. As you can see on the talent poster right now, you see the Southern Six, you see the Pretty Empowered, you see Ricky Morton, you see the Brothers of Construction, you see Blunt Force Trauma, Murnochs, the Fixers, obviously the world's heavyweight champion, Chris Adonis, Max the Impaler, Colby Carino, and of course, Camille. So that's tickets go on sale tomorrow at noon. If you guys are interested, nwatix.com. But that's for the November 4th TV taping. And I see DKM is ready, so I'm going to pull him up right now. And I'll be right back.
So DK, between Ring of Honor, they did between 1,100 at their peak and 500 in their worst in Concord, North Carolina. They did an angle to set up the pay-per-view on the Concord, North Carolina event before the Crockett Cup. Crockett Cup drew 1,300 people. Also, what I wanted to say is, you may have also helped me on my point with this. the Ring of Honor television drew significantly more people to their television programming than actually went to Ring of Honor events. And
Sorry.
and that could have drawn from those people, because I know I went to a couple Ring of Honor events and I stopped going because the Ring of Honor fans themselves were very douchebaggy and I didn't like being around them. So there might have been some NWA fans who liked the Ring of Honor program, watched the Ring of Honor program, but didn't go to Ring of Honor events, but that might have come to that just because it was NWA and they saw it on Ring of Honor, because they also did lots of promotion in the area on that.
Okay.
That's
what I was trying to tell you.
Look, I think people were misunderstanding some of what I was saying.
I think we all did, honestly. I think we all didn't say it properly.
My thing was, I don't deny anything that ROH did for the NWA when it came to that show. But that was pre-Power, right?
Yes.
Okay. My point was, in fact, Jaden may have made my point when he said they drew 1,100 people sans NWA, which is they were drawing Ring of Honor fans. Okay, they saw an NWA show, but how much of that translated later once Power started, once things went on? I mean, Power, we can't go back and look, but if I remember correctly, Power never really popped because the ROH guys were on there. In fact, they were still declining from the loss of Jim Cornette. And so, and then when looking at the thing for who was on there, to me, the only team that mattered was the Briscoe brothers. I mean, Ricky and Robert at the time could go draw 600, 700, 800 fans in parts of Carolina without anybody else being on the show. Any games.
And we weren't disagreeing on that point.
And so my thing was that there's always been this misperception that, oh, well, if we get the belt on a show like Ring of Honor, or we get the belt on a show like MLW, or maybe even TNA, I don't know, that, it's out there, that's good. And, it was the same argument that was made with Tyrus. Oh, well, Tyrus is taking his title out, on Fox News, and people are going to see it. And it was in a Super Bowl commercial. Okay. How many people on the Super Bowl commercial knew what he was holding? I mean, who saw it that day? How many people immediately, I mean, I'm sure there are a few that said, hey, I remember that belt. But, how many have since that time become hardcore NWA fans? I mean, the success of that pay-per-view, to go to what Jaden was saying, was because it was an ROH show in an ROH, building in an ROH area. Could they have gone somewhere else to a different building, used other teams, maybe brought somebody else in who was very familiar to that area and drawn 700 or 800 people? Well, I mean, looking at, again, what Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson were drawing at the time, yes. I mean, they were they had a bit of a renaissance at that time. Even I remember Jaden saying at the time, they're one of the most popular tag teams in the country as far as, people wanting to book them and stuff like that. And so we kind of lost focus to get back to that, to go into that pay-per-view. But really what I was arguing was that in the end of things, getting the belt on ROH, I don't think would have made a lot of difference. I mean, remember Nick Aldis interfered in the match with PCO, lost the title back to Rush. Whoosh, excuse me, not Rush. And so that's where I take exception or disagree or whatever really with the world is the idea that, oh, well, if we get it here, then that's really going to put eyes on it, and therefore it's going to be more successful. Well, maybe, again, it depends on how it's used. I mean, the only time that I think it really did any good was when it was on, WWE with Dan Severn. And then I think the only reason it did good is because a lot of promoters joined, and they went from one promoter who promoted regularly to, several promoters who, promoted, up to 20, I think, at their height, who were promoting across the country with some success. So, yeah, my argument isn't whether ROH is successful. My argument is ROH being successful and putting the NWA title on it isn't doing a lot for the NWA when things are said and done. And again, they were on a downward trajectory. They had gone from almost 200,000 people even after Cornette left, to where they were about at 120,000 when the pandemic hit. So I don't see that the idea of putting the title on Marty Scurll was going to just be this great thing. And certainly not. I certainly wouldn't have wanted to put the title on Scurll.
Conversely speaking, and this is where we're going to have to agree to disagree, they were looking at trying to pop an audience when they were on the decline. Prior to prior to Power, when they were dealing with Ring of Honor, they didn't have a resource, right? They were on TV on their 10 pounds of gold. That was their program. But now that they had a YouTube show that had moderately good numbers, especially for a YouTube show, that's what people forget. That 100,000 on YouTube, that's huge. That's huge. And so when those numbers started to diminish, I think they were looking for an outlet to get more people to be, hey, there is another wrestling brand out there. And maybe you're right. Maybe that was all just a bad effort, or maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I don't have the answers. I'm not Billy Corgan. But my perception always was, if you get Marty Scurll fans, you get Ring of Honor fans to tune in, which is what they were doing. They brought in PCO, they brought in Flip Gordon, they brought in Marty Scurll, and they brought in Brody King, all as villains. I think they were trying to do some crossover appeal. They were doing joint shows before the pandemic hit. There were some shows that were supposed to happen where Aldis was going to defend the 10 pounds of gold against PCO. It's all water under the bridge now. None of that happened. And now AEW owns Ring of Honor. Nick Aldis is not in the NWA. Marty Scurll is starting to get bookings here in the United States, and it is what it is.
One of the advantages it would have given them is access to talent that could, with a good booker, and that's unfortunately the caveat there, could have made a difference for people caring about the NWA. Here's the main thing. It doesn't matter where you put the belt on television. If the people do come and what they see is not something that's going to keep them there, then it's all for naught. It's a short-term. I can't even say it's a Band-Aid on a leaking dam. Just putting a little quick fix on it. In the long term, that wasn't going to help.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how much it would have helped in the short term. And yes, obviously we don't know, and I could be wrong. We can't go take a time machine back and change things. And if we could, that's not important enough to go back and change. But we might stop Hitler instead. But yeah, I mean, my thing is always, and that's what when I said, I go, you're really, I understand they want to pop something. I just don't know how well it would have worked in the end.
It was a desperation move, though. That's what it was. They didn't really have a lot of options. They were trying something to draw the interest back that they lost with Cornette. And in all honesty, lost with because of AEW.
Yeah, I don't. I think Lou said that as well. AEW stole the NWA's oxygen, and that's more ways than one, guys. There was a lot of ongoing discussion about putting the NWA on a Turner Sports network, not necessarily TNT, not necessarily TBS, but on that network of channels, or maybe on their online distribution. That fell apart because of AEW. They quite literally choked the air out of the room. And then on top of that, when AEW debuted, it all kind of happened around the pandemic too. So they lost talent. They lost guys like, they lost Thunder Rosa. That happened later. But they lost Ricky Starks. Royce Isaacs left. I mean, the pandemic really choked the life out of them. And AEW did that, an Emerald Fusion driver on them, and the referee didn't check on the NWA while that was happening. Let's move on, though. Let's move on to the next topic, because it wasn't in the show notes to go off about Ring of Honor and NWA's relationship. I think what we were going to talk about, we already kind of covered the WWE releases. DK, Jaden and I both kind of gave our picks as to who we think would immediately upgrade the NWA as an organization if they were able to procure those talents. Do you have anyone that you want to mention specifically by name who you think could help the NWA if they were added to the roster?
If we're talking realistic, and but I mean realistic that they would work for the NWA. I think Dolph Ziggler would be a big thing, but I think Dolph Ziggler is going to take money.
Yeah, and Jaden said the same thing.
And so, realistically, I would probably look at Benjamin, like you said. Having a veteran like that is just good to have in your back locker room. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm looking for the word locker room. It would be good to have in their locker room and to help the young people. And the only thing is, I don't know that I would want. I don't like it when they bring somebody from the outside and immediately put them in a world title picture.
Right.
On the other hand, I don't know that I would want him mired in the mid card either, because that's when we get what we were talking about, with Eli. This is actually how it all started. Our 12 into ROH is that should we have been seeing Aldis versus Skrull, or would the NWA have been better off putting Aldis and Eli Drake in a program together? And that's the thing. So I don't know how you bring Shelton Benjamin in. I'm not really ready to take any of the titles off any of the current champions. I wouldn't want him to come in and take the title off Thrillbilly, because I don't think that would hurt Thrillbilly. And I don't know that it would help, Benjamin. So it's, you would probably bring him in to put him in a top feud with a top guy, maybe, who's not the world champion, and then let him focus, change his focus to some world title match. And I'm not saying put the world title on him. I'm not saying don't put the world title on him. But I'm saying, ultimately what you want to see with Benjamin is the type of wrestler he is and size he is. I think you'd want to see some matches between him and EC3. On the women's side, I don't know. Maybe bring Dana Brooke in. And I'm not sure about Emma Tennille. Maybe those two. And really, there are so many people who I just don't know who I either don't know who they are, or I don't know what their real talent level is. And so again, I was talking maybe Boogs, maybe Moss. Could they be good enough? I don't know. And
Put him under the mask and make him White Doom. Make him Mood, Mood.
That's so stupid.
You're joking, and of course we can't use White Doom in this day and age. But theoretically, you could bring, if you wanted to do like something that they seem to be trying to do with Scion when he first came. If you wanted to really do something, you could bring them, one of them or both of them, in under mask to do some wrestling and stuff like that. Because then when they unmask, 6 months down the road or whatever, they go, that's, whoever who used to be with WWE, and it would also give you a chance to see if they could actually wrestle or not without making it look like, I went out and spent a ton of money.
So the comment of the night, I'm going to go ahead and award that to Luthez for saying, and having that reverse doom mood managed by White Lavender Jones. You win. Luthez wins the internet today. Chris Drummond says, would you revive the world greatest tag team in the NWA? And my first answer is absolutely not. Charlie Haas is not he's not Shelton Benjamin. Charlie Haas has an expiration date, and I think he's well past it. I remember seeing Charlie Haas when he was doing stuff for the Southwestern Wrestling Entertainment, or whatever that was called, SWE Fury.
Yeah, he was their last champion.
And he wasn't very good. He just wasn't.
No, and he was very, very thin.
And it seemed like maybe he was sick. I don't know, but he wasn't Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin looks just as good today as he did when he debuted, and that's why I would say, yeah, absolutely, I would take a guy like Shelton Benjamin on my roster, any roster. Likely,
Haas retires a lot.
He forgets the NWA exists a lot too.
Yeah, he retires a lot, and legitimately does not wrestle for a while. And the last couple of times that he retired and stopped wrestling, he's just really stopped working out. And so he really slimmed down. He actually started getting back to a decent size towards the end of the SWE's run, but yeah, he's not dedicated to it. He was willing to work. He lives in Frisco, which is just north of Dallas, or at least he used to. I think he still does. And he'll work basically some indie promos around here as long as he gets to be the champion. Seriously, as long as he can be the top champion, he's willing to work some. He's willing to work for some local indies, meet his price, and make him the champion. He'll wrestle for you. So no, I wouldn't put them back as a tag team.
No, not at all. Not at all. Sorry, Matthew Underwood's making some jokes in here, and I'm going to read it out loud, although I probably shouldn't. I assume with the cuts, AOP is finally going to AOP is finally going back to TV since they are in payroll in the Fed. I misunderstood that joke. I thought it was a joke about ADP, which I thought was a terrible joke, and now I realized he was saying that they're on the payroll, not doing payroll, so that changes everything. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know, man. Are they on the payroll? I mean, that's the rumor. That's the speculation, but I don't know. Yeah. The other thing we have to think about too is what WWE is. They're notorious for cutting these talents, but it's funny because as we're talking about all these names that have been disheveled from the WWE, they're right now holding a camp, a tryout, if you will, with names like Matty Rinkowski, Jamie Stanley, Ray Jazz, and a bunch of other talents, none of which Jade Cargill's on that list too, of talents who they're giving an opportunity to try out for. It's about, things going up and things going down, man. And the thing about a corporate machine is like, it doesn't rest for anybody and nobody's safe. Hulk Hogan used to be the absolute made guy in the WWE, and now they're reluctant to even put him on television. So I guess what I'm saying is this is kind of like what happens, and y'all should be used to it by now.
Well, here's another thing. It was bad enough with Vince McMahon, but now you're a bigger, more publicly traded company.
Yep.
And it's gonna be hellacious. I mean, we already saw where UFC was willing to let their world heavyweight champion go because they couldn't come to an agreement on a contract. So
they've done it more than once.
Well, yeah, they've let champions go, but now he's fighting. That British boxer.
Tyson Fury?
Yes. If you want any proof that Tyson Fury's a fraud, there you go.
Of all the names in boxing, of all the people who are on this podcast, I'm the one that got that name. That's unbelievable. All right, so let's move on then. We've done enough talking about the WWE. We did enough talking about a Ring of Honor relationship in the past. Let's talk about what the NWA is doing right now. I think it's quite remarkable that, I was one of these guys that saw Kerry Morton out here singing the praise of the NWA, carrying that junior heavyweight championship. And if you watch the beginning of this podcast, if you're watching it now or if you go back and watch it later, I played the promo of him talking about this opportunity he has on Sunday when he faces Rocky Romero in a World Junior Heavyweight Championship match. But to him, it's not even about the belt. It's more about this redemption arc that he feels that his heroin addiction not only sullied the Corino name, but also sullied the name of Rocky Romero in the eyes of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it's this Sunday, he's looking at redemption with Rocky Romero. And I think that's, number one, an amazing promo. And I would hope that at some point we get a promo like that from Corino in an NWA ring. So transparent, so powerful, so filled with emotion. But more so than that, you're seeing a guy literally defending that junior heavyweight championship. Now, I know one of the matches just got canceled because of inclement weather in North Carolina, but he's out there going to defend. He was scheduled to defend the title 3 times in 2 days. Excuse me, 3 times, 3 days, 4 different shows. And yes, I did mean Colby. I started off saying Kerry Morton was a guy who I was super proud of for ringing that NWA bell. But now Colby, as junior heavyweight champion, has picked up where Kerry left off and maybe even presented it even in a higher position than Kerry did. And my first question to either one of you is, did you guys hear the promo from Colby Corino?
I have not.
I have not.
Dare I play it again? You guys mind listening to the promo again?
Sure. I didn't listen to it the first time.
I'm going to play it again.
Seen a lot of ring trucks throughout my day. Set up a lot of rings. Way before I was a champion, I was just another student on ring crew, just setting up every ring I could, trying to learn something from anyone that would teach me. Rocky Romero was one of those people, and I think he saw something in Colby Corino when he was a young, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 18-year-old kid, enough to recommend him to go to New Japan and live in the dojo for a whole year. That was something that I graciously accepted. I was so happy. I was elated. It felt like my dream was come true. I was going to go to Japan just like my dad did, and I was going to make my name. 3 weeks before I went to Japan, I overdosed on heroin, and when the medics came to revive me, I had all my drugs laying around, and I got arrested too. Once New Japan heard about that, well, the contract was done. I wasn't going to Japan no more. Probably not going to Japan for a long while. Rocky Romero put his name on me, and because of what I did, it's solely his name, and it's solely his relationship with New Japan too, and it set him back. And I need to show Rocky that I'm not the same messed up kid that ruined his whole life. I'm this kid that, no, I'm a man that's realized his potential and become a champion in his sport. And I need to show Rocky that, man to man. I need to show him that I'm not the same person that I was 6 years ago, and that who Colby Corino is today is not just some fuck up. Is a champion.
I mean, that's damn. Like, did that get you in your feels, or am I the only one here?
I'm waiting for DK to answer.
Almost. I don't really have feels, but you know.
Jaden, you've known Colby Corino since he was a kid.
Yeah.
He was in your ring when he was a kid.
I don't own a ring. Well, actually, I do own a ring, but nobody's been in it in a long time. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, he was in a dog ring.
Okay.
He was in Dog's ring for a while, a couple times, I think. He was a good kid, and stupid shit happens. You know, people make mistakes. So, but I guess now if he's learned from it, a mistake's only a mistake if you really don't learn from it. Otherwise, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
So maybe this learning experience is something that will help elevate him to bigger and better things and an NWA Championship. At least it's enough to make you wipe a tear from your eye.
Yeah, those were eye boogers. But yeah, I mean, look, man, I'm sitting here looking at our upcoming events calendar for the National Wrestling Alliance that you can find at alliance-wrestling.com/event. And when you look at the upcoming matches on September 22nd, Colby Corino versus Donnie Ray for the World Junior Heavyweight Championship. That's the match that just got postponed because of inclement weather in North Carolina. So that's not going to happen. That was supposed to be Friday night. Saturday, he's got a match defending the title in I don't think too far from you in what city is this? It is Williamstown, off of Glassboro Road. He's going to be defending the title there at the what's the promotion called? ETU Wrestling. The show is called Nostalgia Ultra. He'll be defending the title there, and that's before the No Holds Barred event, which is now not where I guess never was a title match. I was mistaken on that one. So but then again on Sunday he heads to Catalyst Wrestling in the Bronx in New York against Rocky Romero, defending that title again. And the only other title match that's happening that weekend is EC3 taking on Lord Crew. So, I mean, Colby's out there waving that banner, waving that flag for the NWA. My first question to both of you, second question to both of you guys is, with this influx of title defenses and knowing full well that Colby was taking limited bookings after his deal with the WWE fell apart, do you think there might be a deal in play that Colby Corino is heading back to the WWE? And you think he's just trying to get the most out of his run as World Junior Heavyweight Champion?
I think he's trying to get as much of a run out as World Junior Heavyweight Champion, whether there's a WWE deal or not. Also, right now, if they are cost-cutting while they are bringing talent in, it's kind of like a hockey team, WWE cutting, the talent's kind of like a hockey team cutting a contract in the salary cap era to try to make room for the younger talent because they cost less.
Yeah.
Well, he probably won't cost a lot right now, but it does bring a bad image to bring in somebody you've already released recently after you just released a bunch of other people. I think he probably wouldn't be there for a while. I think NWA has him for at least the next 3 months, maybe next, from at least the next 90 days. And I think he's just trying to make as much money as he can while he is, because a lot of people don't know there's WWE contracts. You don't make a lot of money. You're not making a whole fortune on those like NXT tryout contracts and stuff like that. You have to put your best foot forward, I guess, and just try to do everything you can. But you have to save up some money to do so, and move down to a different state and have a place to stay and move in with a bunch of people. And he's got a child to take care of too. So I think he's just trying to make as much money as he possibly can right now.
DK, what do you think?
I think anytime you're given a title like that, be it the NWA Junior Heavyweight title or MLW title or whatever, you should try to make the most out of it. Because I think, especially if what you're trying to do is be a wrestler who goes on to win championships anywhere.
Yeah.
You want to be the best that you can be, especially as a champion. Is he WWE bound? I mean, maybe no, probably yes, no, I don't know. It's just, it's something that gets said a lot, and it takes a while for things to happen. I mean, how many times has Matt Cardona been going back to WWE to join his wife?
This is true.
Since before she even showed back up on the show.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I just can't say. I'm having something popped up on my screen. I'm having a Mandela effect moment. So,
well, okay. So then, while we're talking about it, this is one of the matches that has been signed now for Samhain. I accidentally flashed the graphic earlier. If you haven't seen it, you've got the World Junior Heavyweight Champion taking on the self-professed face of the NWA, Joe Alonzo, on October the 28th in Cleveland, Ohio. That match, the real winner of that match is Jamie Stanley, because if he's still within the organization, he is currently the manager of both of those guys.
Hope he pulls a Bobby Heenan when Haku took on Harley Race.
What did he do during that?
Cheered whoever was winning.
Perfect. I love it.
Real quick though, whatever happened to Barrett Brown? I thought he was with the NWA.
No, he never really was offered a deal. He just had that one match, and that match did not take place in an NWA ring. That was actually in a Texas ring. Yeah,
but didn't they like offer him something, or he get a? I don't know. I just
their social media and this thing. I 100% don't know who runs their social media. They'll still retweet his stuff, and they'll still talk about him. He'll still talk about the NWA up through when till Kerry Morton lost the title. And so I honestly don't know. I don't know what talks may or may not have taken place.
They should bring Kerry in then to wherever he's wrestling as his home promotion and just have Kerry put him over.
Kerry?
Whoever. Yeah, Kerry. Have Kerry put him over now. Kerry beat him for the championship. Now they have a rematch, and he beats Kerry. And then there's a big rubber match needed. Some promoter can make that out. Barrett Brown I'm talking about.
Okay, because Kerry beat Homicide for the title.
Yes, I know, but he beat... In the rematch, he beat Barrett Brown, that big rematch, because technically Barrett never lost it. And so Kerry was a paper champion until he beat the former champion, never lost it, and that was Barrett Brown. So now they could have that big rematch, so whoever's booked it maybe the first time, and then Barrett Brown gets his win back, and then they have a big rubber match somewhere. Maybe the NWA.
Look, I'm all about Barrett Brown getting more opportunities within the NWA. I think that he fits the culture very well. He's one of the guys from the Southwest, kind of like Tim Storm, kind of like Jack Stane. You know, I wouldn't mind having him in the locker room for sure. I just don't know if that's in the cards. You know, the other match that's set up for Power, or excuse me, not for Power, for the pay-per-view, and we saw this on Power this week. It was set up that we have Ruthie J getting an opportunity to face the Women's World Champion Kenzie Page. DK, you know, I know that you and I are both fans of Pretty in Power. We've seen Kenzie Page's development through the NWA farm system. Similarly to that, you know, you've got a very new to the world of wrestling athlete in Ruthie J. Only been in the business for 2 years, trained by Gangrel. Spent most of her time wrestling in Florida. Really didn't pick up her career until she got into the NWA. What are your thoughts on this new face challenging for the Women's World Championship?
I think she's a good person for a title defense on TV. I probably would have built it differently, but I mean, I don't have anything. I don't have anything against it other than it lacks any type of you know, big time feel. You know, it's kind of like when Ric Flair came in one time to defend the title against Mike Von Erich. It's like, okay. You know? We know he's not going to win, and we know this is basically just a setup to a confrontation with Kerry, but I'm not sure how I actually feel about it.
Other than the main event, the potential, I'm not even sure it was announced, but other than like EC3 and Latimer, there's nothing at all right now in this pay-per-view that catches my attention. It just feels like an episode of Power.
Yeah. So we're looking at Tom Latimer versus EC3. That is the match that was announced. It was announced on Power recently. You know, and I kind of get what you're saying, but I will say this. If you're watching Power, they are rewarding you by building up matches based on what we're seeing on Power. Now, Joe Alonzo, you know, I don't really know why they gave him this title match. They kind of halfway explained it on Power, is that, well, he beat Homicide, the former champion, so that got him closer to the line. But with that matchup with him and Homicide was like not your traditional wrestling match. It was more of a death match, more of a hardcore match. So I'm not really sure why they're using that as a basis to putting Alonzo in the number one contender spot. You know, you would think that Kerry would have had some sort of rematch, but as our pal Matthew Underwood said in the chat, Kerry's a heavyweight now. He's not even looking at an opportunity to get a spot with the junior heavyweight title. So there are guys on the roster that would have been fitting for this, but again, like you know, I guess Alonzo might be the hot guy in the junior heavyweight division. That's not Colby Carino, just because of the big victory with Homicide and everything else. So, but that's go ahead.
It's a stretch, but I mean, but that actually brings up something that we saw on Twitter, where who tweeted it? Was it the NWA or something like that? But they're almost making it sound like, you know, Sam Berger or whatever this show's called was going to be like an Extreme Rules type pay-per-view.
Yeah, the style win is going to be like a hardcore themed pay-per-view, but they haven't announced any stipulation yet that would make you think it's going to be a hardcore match.
Right, because they were suggesting what were they suggesting for the Latimer versus EC3? Like a Texas death match? Or...
Oh no, that was just an NWA fan.
Maybe they retweeted it.
No, what had happened was gosh, I believe it was. It's one of the guys that's in our Discord, and I can't remember who it was right at the moment, but he said something like, "How about Texas death match?" To which Camille replied, "How about no?" And then I said, "How about just no bull rope match?" Because I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, my comment was, what if we just saw wrestlers wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you pigeonhole yourself into a pay-per-view that's gonna be the most hardcore evil pay-per-view ever, some people are gonna go into that expecting some hardcore matches. Our pal Tim last night said, like, hey, this is a much shorter distance for him to get to the live event than it was St. Louis, and he still has almost zero interest in this matchup. Oh, it was Doty. Matthew Underwood pointed out it was Doty.
Yeah. The NWA post, let's sell out the first ever hardcore theme pay-per-view. To which Doty replied, let's make the real EC3 versus Tom Latimer a Texas death match. Which, he just won the title in a Extreme Rules type match. So sure, let's make his first major defense something. To which Camille responds, no. And I responded, NWA, can we let wrestlers maybe wrestle? And Jay, being the smart aleck that he is, says, just no bull ropes, please. So there we go.
By the way, my chair does not look like that.
Okay.
He wants you to get an accurate picture of his squeaky chair.
Mine's not that far off. It just doesn't have the arms.
Never mind. That's not appropriate for this show.
That's so you can kiss my... Oh, anyway.
Okay, so who is Brenda Warner? Is that Kurt Warner's wife when she used to take up for Kurt in all the internet chat rooms and stuff?
Who's Kurt Warner?
He used to be the quarterback for the Rams when they were in St. Louis.
He's the XFL Hall of Famer, Kurt Warner.
I think he was in the other league, not the XFL, but the USWL or something.
Arena football, maybe.
Speaking of USWL, starting up my own wrestling league. That's the name we're going to use.
United States Wrestling League?
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
Why not? Sure. So we talked a little bit about the matches that are up at the pay-per-view. One of the things I felt very interested in, and I feel like this is a sign of the times, that I feel like the NWA is starting to garner more interest. DK said earlier that, the reason why Concord was such a hit was because of the NWA, the way that the NWA had its history there. I feel like now more than ever, I'm starting to see
part of the reason.
Excuse me. I think now more than ever, I'm starting to see more and more event posters with NWA talents on it, and I'm seeing guys like Dak Draper. He's going to be at Glory Pro. That's St. Louis, Missouri is not the home of Dak Draper. I believe he is a Colorado native, and to see him on a poster for this weekend's show at Glory Pro Wrestling, I think it shows you that there's value with him from being on the NWA. Of course, some of these other posters, you might have already seen these in other places, but Colby Carino versus Donnie Ray at the it's a tag tournament that they were going to have. We see, No Holds Barred. They're specifically pointing out that he's in the NWA. You've got, already WrestleCade, which isn't until November. Which I guess is a lot closer than I was thinking. They're showing pictures of Ella Envy and Kenzie Page to entice you to go. They've got, this event coming up, Colby Carino versus Brogan Finley, also for the World Junior Heavyweight Championship. We're seeing a lot more NWA getting around, Kenzie Page versus Danny Jordan's Southern Honor Wrestling. It's not just one particular territory. It's not just one particular area. We're seeing the NWA becoming maybe a desirable asset. What do you think about that, Jaden?
It's kind of like when you go to a bar and they have like a Budweiser banner, then they print live Jello wrestling on as the attraction. The NWA name is similar. You create an association with a successful product, or at least a reasonable facsimile of one, and a recognizable name, and it adds an association to their name. It reminds me of like when what's his name? I can't believe I can't think of his name. Runs Championship Wrestling. David Marquez. He said, like, I can't understand why they put a WWE superstar next to a wrestler. He said, if they're that successful, why do you got to put NWA or WWE superstar? Well, you're not putting it for the fact that, these people to try to tell them that they're a WWE superstar. You're doing it because you're trying to associate your product with something successful, so people see you as successful too. And that's what they're doing right now. The NWA name is a little more out there than it was during the White Lavender Jones era, and they're trying to capitalize on that recognition.
DK, what is your take on that?
Well, I mean, it's good anytime you can get your wrestlers out there wrestling. Again, I think some of it is you look who they are and where they're wrestling. Again, Colby Corino is going to get more bookings on some indie dates than well, let's just say Mims for this moment. And that's not anything derogatory towards Mims. I'm just saying, he's somebody who's, a little better known, been around, stuff like that. And so if the NWA can associate with him as he goes and wrestles these other places that he would probably be wrestling anyway, whether he was champion or not, it just helps. In that sense. Of course, you also got to be careful if you're the promoters and stuff like that. You either got to find Colby Corino other challengers to make it worthwhile, but you don't want them coming in and defeat your entire roster. So, you got to watch it a little bit.
It's also, though, it's kind of funny. If now only the NWA would acknowledge these matches are happening, maybe they can capitalize on it too.
Yeah, you would almost think that they would want to. There's, again, I don't know who are on social media, but their social media seems to acknowledge some of these things more than the show. I think I'd want my champions to be saying, hey, come see this, come see that.
I will say this. I do know Gary Horn is responsible for some of the social media. I know that there's more than just Gary Horn involved with that. They put it in the credits. You guys can see it on the TV show. I'm not breaking news there or anything. But I just feel like I agree with both of what you're saying. Like, they're acknowledging the matches on social media. They should be acknowledging them on television. And to a lesser extent, like, Colby Corino had all of those matches happen this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Each one of those matches is going to be available on IWTV, and that means that NWA fans have an opportunity, if they subscribe, to watch each and every one of those matches. In fact, Southern Honor Wrestling is also available on IWTV. There's a lot of resources there if fans of the NWA want to check these out. And I feel like it might be a smart business decision for the NWA to work with these promotions to try to get some of that stuff, some of those matches on their own TV program, or at least maybe highlight them. I know Dave Scooby has been beating that drum for a very long time, but just to be able to highlight a match like that would make a lot of sense. How often has the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship actually been defended in Brooklyn? I think Homicide did it, but before then, who? Nobody.
No, who never was a junior heavyweight.
Oh, shit.
Who's on first?
No, who is Jim the Anvil Neihart with a mask on?
Hey, Jaden?
Yes.
looking at the time now, I think our plan worked. The fight took up enough time to actually keep us from talking about power this week.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap things up right now. So
Okay.
you guys win again.
We'll have to figure out what to fight about next week.
Jay's hair.
He's got the most of us all, so I can't say anything against that.
Yeah, well, we'll argue about which one of us is more jealous of it.
The fans are. All right, so let's.
Kevin Owens is.
What's that?
Kevin Owens is.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens is.
Jaden, we were talking a lot about your time in the world of professional wrestling. Is there any updates with Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, who I know are rapidly approaching 1,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel? Is there any news or information that you want to share about that?
Not exactly. Unfortunately, Dog right now is still in a holding pattern trying to get a building. There was going to be something for the Pause with the Cause, but unfortunately, situations didn't work out with that. So that's not going to happen now. I do know friends at Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Alliance. I always get the A on that one wrong. Association, Alliance, whatever it is. MAWA. They're going to have a card coming up on October the 7th. And the Vinny the Fixer will be defending the MAWA championship against former champion. God, I can't think of the guy's name. I guess I should be prepared, but I wasn't thinking to prepare for this. But Patch will be taking on Daredevil Dave Dahl. So anybody wants to see Dave Dahl get murdered against Patch, I definitely should go to check that out.
And then DK, I know the number one rule is to not bother you, even though I think we bothered you a lot tonight. How can people follow you on the socials?
At DKMFWTX, which the X is where I'm mainly going to be active if it has anything to do with wrestling. Although I'm not overly active on any of my social media.
And he needs to be calmed down, so send him some pictures of people hurting themselves in cat videos. He seems to like them.
Especially children getting hurt.
Or people getting suplexed. That makes DK super happy.
That makes everyone super happy.
In this case, we're talking about actual wrestling.
I don't know. I'm sure if there was Steiner suplexing people on their head, you'd enjoy it.
Yeah,
yes.
But who wouldn't? Come on. That's not just me.
That's me too. I used to love the Steiners back in the 90s. Anyways, wrapping it up, you can follow the Alliance blog on all social medias. If you're staying tuned, if you're watching what we're doing this Saturday, I will be in Tijuana, Mexico, taking photos of and video of the Promociones Lucha Libre. It's supposed to be a great card. In fact, I did the math, and I've actually been to more wrestling matches in Mexico this year than I have been in California. So it's kind of funny, kind of weird. But more of that, you'll see that on our social medias as well. And then, of course, everything's at the Alliance blog. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow. Tell us what your favorite wrestling match is. And that's going to do it for us. So, guys, thank you so much for being here.
Real quick, Jay. I thought Southern California was a suburb of Mexico.
I mean, Tijuana is called Baja California, and I live in Southern California. So I think we're all Californians at some point. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you so. What'd you say?
Not me.
No, you're in the Republic of Texas. We know that. Thank you so much. When that power grid goes out, you tell me amen. All right, guys. For that, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next week at the matches.
Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.